This is not the first time you have traversed a swamp, and your party has come prepared for the otherworldly mists, treacherous, moss-pocked terrain, tangled roots, and murky waterways. Bioluminescent mushrooms and carnivorous lilies add an eerie beauty, while fireflies and will-o-wisps flit, creating a mesmerizing, albeit deceptive ambiance. Ancient ruins of a forgotten civilization rise from the waters, promising valuable artifacts and forbidden knowledge to those brave enough to delve into the depths. Your party look around at each other in acknowledgement, understanding silently passing between you all. You tread carefully, avoiding stepping too close to the waters that surround you, taking great care to step lightly on the saturated ground. A frog croaks off in the distance, and a shiver runs down your spine, and that's when you hear it, the sound of something large, pushing its way through the bog that stands before you. With a signal, the ranger leading your group instructs you to drop down low. Looking on, you can see a small party of adventurers from another group beginning to wade out into the swamp, clearly unaware of the infamy of this place. Before any of you can react, an explosion of sound, mud and water burst forth from the moor, showering the other group with soggy detritus as a huge, green-skinned behemoth launches itself well clear of the ground and into combat. The three eye stalks crowning its slimy brow twist and turn, gauging their quarry as a long, sticky tongue blasts forth from the beast's slavering maw, ensnaring one of the adventurers before dragging them down into the guts of the ravenous Froghemoth. You look on as the rest of their panicked crew engage the monster in desperate combat, leaving your party with a dilemma. Aid them in their battle against this swamp's apex monster and risk becoming prey yourselves, or use this as an opportunity to sneak through the swamp and potentially gain access to one of the more difficult to reach ruins uninhibited. The choice is yours. It's up to you to decide whether or not to roll for initiative. The Froghemoth is a huge monstrosity that has the ability to strike fear into the hearts of even the most stalwart of adventurers. Standing around 5.5 meters or 18 feet tall, these towering amphibian hulks can be found in a variety of temperate climates, with their preferred environment being none other than the dankest of swamps. According to an ancient journal attributed to the wizard Lum, Froghemoths are not of this world, that world being the Forgotten Realms, and there are accounts of peculiar metal cylinders hidden in the earth from which the great green monsters emerged. And while this makes for a great story, no credible information surrounding the whereabouts of these sites has been documented, leaving the origin of the Froghemoth up for debate. Whatever the case, Froghemoths are incredibly strong monsters, and should only be approached with extreme caution. Well, probably never, actually. If you do happen to come across one of these squelchy foes, it's best you know what to expect at least. With 23 in strength, 13 dexterity, 20 constitution, 2 intelligence, 12 wisdom, and 5 in charisma, you can quickly see where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and how you could begin planning to bring one down. The Froghemoth is best targeted with anything that provokes an intelligence or charisma saving throw, with spells such as Tasha's Mind Whip, Bane, Mental Prison, and good old Banish being extremely effective against these monsters, whose only real brain function revolves around making sure you end up as its lunch. All that being said, the Froghemoth is certainly no pushover, and boasts very good strength and constitution stats, as well as a high dexterity score for a creature of their seemingly cumbersome demeanour. Sticking with the theme of hardiness, the Froghemoth is resistant to both fire and lightning damage, which is odd considering that the Froghemoth also suffers from shock susceptibility. This means that upon taking lightning damage, the Froghemoth's speed is halved, it takes a -2 penalty to dexterity saving throws and to its AC, it can't use reactions or multi-attack, and on its turn, it can use either a bonus action or an action, not both. This is incredibly detrimental to the Froghemoth's ability to perform in combat, and its resistance to lightning damage is, mechanically at least, likely there to stop characters from abusing the use of lightning damage against it. Thematically, however, these resistances come from the Froghemoth's slimy body and rubbery skin, granting it at least some protection from these devastating elemental forces. Now, if the Froghemoth does get into combat before you taser it to death, these monstrosities have an array of attacks and abilities that make them potent consistent foes in combat, with its multi-attack granting it up to 3 attacks per turn, 2 of which of these being with its tentacles, with the option to then use its bite or tongue attack as well, with each of its attacks performing different, equally punishing roles in their own right. We'll start off with the tentacles, which, as you'd expect, can grapple creatures. This grapple works against creatures of a huge size or smaller, and has a whopping range of 20 feet, meaning that even a lot more ranged focused characters will need to watch their positioning around this behemoth. It's worth noting that the tentacle attack doesn't restrain a target, only grapples them. Next up is the bite attack, and the 3d10 plus 6 damage really drives home the fact that most frogs do, in fact, have teeth. No, they do. Go on, honestly. Look it up if you don't believe me. Anyway, aside from that terrifying realization, if you do happen to get swallowed by a Froghemoth, the fun has only just begun. Upon getting scoffed, you will be greeted by burning gullet acid, which will continue to do damage until your demise. The Froghemoth's gullet is also big enough that it can hold up to 2 creatures at a single time. Quite cozy, really. As with the usual swallow rules, it is possible to hack and slash your way out of the belly of the beast, with 20 damage in a single turn being the magic number to invoke Sweet Release. And finally on the list of froggy firepower is its tenebrous tongue, which flies forward from the Froghemoth's maw with a single deadly aim to ensnare its victim before they can escape, or react at all, quite frankly. The tongue attack targets one medium or smaller creature that the Froghemoth can see within 20 feet. On a failed DC 18 strength saving throw, the creature is pulled into an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the Froghemoth, with the Hoppy Horror then gaining the option to make an attack with its bite as a bonus action. Now, while having an abysmal intelligence level, the Froghemoth is still a voracious predator, with the entirety of its thinking power going towards lapping up its next meal. So let's talk creature tactics. In a combat situation, the Froghemoth will always aim to get the jump on its quarry, and with dark vision, a heavy +9 to perception, and +5 to stealth, these guys are surprisingly adept at stalking and hunting, making them extremely well adapted as ambush predators. The Froghemoth knows that the weakest target makes the easiest meal, so the creature with the lowest perceived strength will take priority as the focus of its tongue and bite attacks. What the Froghemoth lacks in smarts, it makes up for in survival instinct. And while it will focus down on the weakest creature, it will by no means ignore everyone else, opting to use its tentacles to grapple any stronger creatures that may attempt to get in between it and its next meal, effectively attempting to remove them from a combat situation entirely. As with any ambush predator, the Froghemoth doesn't really like it when things actually attack it back. If your party are able to drop the beast to below around 50% of its total hit points, the Froghemoth is likely to beat a retreat back to the murky depths from whence it came, hopefully with its belly at least partially full. Outside of combat, the Froghemoth will lurk in wait of its prey, often submerging itself in deep lakes and swamp water, leaving only its 3 eye stalks protruding from the murk, keeping an eye out for its next meal. Keen-eyed adventurer may be able to spot one if they know what to look for. Their alien nature and giant size has also made them akin to demigods amongst the bullywug community, with the amphibious humanoids flocking to the side of a Froghemoth upon the discovery of one. Bullywugs can, to a degree, communicate with Froghemoths, allowing them to convince their Goliath kin to stay with them at their camps. Entire bullywug villages can be constructed around a Froghemoth hunting ground or lair, the monster being revered and worshipped, with offerings of food aplenty being delivered by the starry-eyed frogmen. This relationship placates the Froghemoth, and while the food keeps coming, the bullywugs remain largely uneaten. Now, Froghemoths will eat literally anything they can wrap their jaws around, and that includes their own eggs and smaller Froghemoths. Once an egg has been laid, the Froghemoth will abandon it to fend for itself, often forgetting that it has actually laid the egg at all. This can be disastrous for the newborn, as if the parent inadvertently stumbles back from whence it came, the egg will quickly end up on the menu. This, once again, is where the helping hand of the bullywugs comes in. If a Froghemoth dwelling in a bullywug settlement lays an egg, the bullywugs will quickly swipe it up, taking it far from the parent that spawned it. A detachment from the village will then dedicate their lives to the protection of this egg, performing a constant vigil until the new Froghemoth hatches. The beast emerges from the egg around half the size of its fully grown form, which is still around 2.7 meters or 9 feet in height. The voracious froglet hatches with a full appetite, and some of its guardian bullywugs will inevitably fall prey to it as it enters the world for the very first time. And while this would seem terrible to us, they probably see this as a high honour. With all that in mind, There are plenty of ways that a party could encounter a Froghemoth. A swamp ambush could be one, with the party getting hunted from the very moment they set foot in the squelchy location. A tribe of bullywugs may be raiding nearby settlements for food offerings that are being used to stay and placate a Froghemoth, and your party has been tasked to put an end to these pesky raids. Or perhaps, a wily wizard has got a Froghemoth under their thrall, and is using the mind-controlled monstrosity as a guardian for their hidden laboratory. Either way, the Froghemoth is a slimy, savage, blorpy terror that is, quite like the rest of us, just out to make sure it ends the day with a belly full of food. Just try to make sure that the food doesn't happen to be you. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then perhaps you'd like to learn more about the strange monsters that inhabit the realms of Dungeons & Dragons.